Yeah, and we're going to get the latest oil price with our indicators in just a moment. But let's move to this story, and it really does focus on the potential for employment in the franchise sector, because the franchise sector are dealing with a lot in the last 3-4 years. COVID-19, power cuts, inflation, constrained consumers. But the 2023 franchise survey shows that on balance there have been more ups than downs, which is really incredible news if you consider how tough these last few years have been. So let's bring in now Fred Makgato. He's the CEO of the Franchise Association of South Africa. Mr. Makgato, I mean, it is amazing that this 4-year survey, and it's been quite a 4 years, let's face it, shows that the franchise sector is really pretty resilient, all things gathered. Let's focus on the ups first. What has the survey found on the positive side?
Thank you for having us, Sally and eNCA. We appreciate the opportunity. The ups, I think, for us, as we have always said, is that the franchise sector is a viable model of a business that could be used to grow the economy of the country. That shows from the report in that, one, we see an increase in the number of employment created within the sector. Two, we see the increase in the contribution to the GDP. 2019, it was 13.9%, which translated into 734 billion. 4 years later, after all these mishaps, we see 999 billion contributed to the economy. Most importantly, we see a shift in terms of the ownership of the businesses. Historically, the numbers showed that the majority of businesses were owned by white people. Now we see the up, wherein we have the previously disadvantaged entrepreneurs getting into the system and contributing positively to the development of our country.
That's really great news, and you know, onward and upward, because that's the sort of news we need to hear to grow our economy. But of course, with COVID-19 hammering economies around the world, I would imagine that the franchise sector also took quite a beating. Talk to me about some of the downs, some of the problem areas that have been exposed through this survey.
So some of the problem areas is that we have seen a shift in terms of the numbers having dropped insofar as the franchise are concerned. But that is as a result whereby if you are an entrepreneur, you always look for innovative ways. So for us, we received notices from members indicating that they are restructuring. So the downward in terms of the numbers is not as a result of businesses closing, but it's in terms of businesses strategically positioning themselves. But what we have also seen, which I think is important and we can't ignore, is that those businesses that continue to exist, they actually came up with new ways of doing business, which is very important. We have seen how deliveries became the norm, and that has now become part of our lives. So I think that is one of the most important aspects about technology, so social media and e-mobility.
Yeah, and I suppose it makes sense that someone who goes into a franchise, as you say, is essentially an entrepreneur, quite a self-starter, and they're used to solving problems, they're used to thinking in an agile way. So it makes sense that they weathered these economic storms quite well. But they're also small businesses often. How have they coped with things like load shedding? Surely that's impacted the bottom line quite significantly.
I think that is where we saw the major hit, because large businesses and mediums were able to buy generators, some were able to install solar panels, and some even used inverters. But smaller businesses, they really struggled. And that is why we encourage entrepreneurs to get into this system, because if you are part of this system, there is a larger pool of resources where you can help each other. But if you're an independent entrepreneur, we have seen in some of the reports last year that the majority of small businesses, especially in the townships, because they were independent, they went under. They didn't get the support that they should get from the larger scheme of things.
Yeah, so that's a real concern. I suppose what's useful about doing a look back over the last 4 years is it also can identify areas for growth. I was reading that there are 12 business categories where you can franchise, and it's everything from fast foods, automotive products, office and home services, childcare, education, health and beauty, real estate, etc., etc. Where is the biggest potential? If someone is watching this and considering perhaps buying into a franchise, where is the biggest potential for growth? Where are you best suited to put your money? Any clues from this survey?
Let me say, let's thank ABSA for the opportunity that they gave us in funding the survey. In that one, if you look at the survey, one wouldn't necessarily look at one sector because all sectors are important for the growth of our economy. I think that the whole idea is that there's this thinking that a certain sector is bigger. It's not. It's because we don't focus on all other sectors. And our role as the association is to say, here's the information, here are the opportunities, come to us. Let's also show you in some areas that you can actually invest and be a business guru who can leave legacy for your children and create jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Making the point that even in tough times, franchises tend to do well, often because of the person managing the problems is quite an agile thinker. And of course, there are support networks such as your organisation as well. Thank you so much for telling us about this 4-year review on franchises in South Africa. That was Fred Makgato, who's Franchise Association of South Africa CEO.